Not My Boy. A Father, a Son, and One Family's Journey with Autism. By Rodney Peete, with Danelle Morton. Narrated by Richard Allen. Copyright 2010 by Hollyrod Entertainment. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Hyperion and was produced in the year 2010 by Tantor Media Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. Prologue. The silken burn of an 18-year-old Macallan single malt Scotch lingered on the edge of my lips before sliding down my throat. My whole body began to glow from the heat of that first sip. As I felt it enter my bloodstream, I knew that I could forget my problems for a while. I hadn't been a hard liquor drinker before my son was diagnosed as being on the autistic spectrum. But that summer, after the diagnosis, I began to understand that there's nothing hard about a good Scotch. When I was able to enjoy a nice Monte Cristo No. 2 with my Macallan, I felt as if I'd claimed a piece of heaven on earth. My favorite retreat was a private lounge called the Grand Havana Room. It was in the middle of Beverly Hills, but it was a place that felt far removed from it all. Members entered the lounge through a private elevator in a protected corner of a public restaurant downstairs. This was a sanctuary for the members. There were no crowds and there was no hassle. The staff in the members' lounge knew the regulars by name and knew exactly what they liked. When I arrived, I'd be escorted to the huge humidor that stood at the center of the main room, and by the time I had my Monty in hand, my Scotch was already waiting for me on the table by my favorite chair. Stretched out in the soft leather club chair, it seemed as though no troubles could touch me. I gazed through the 2-story tall windows to a sweeping view of the Hollywood Hills, enjoying the smell of cedar and fine tobacco and the rhythm of my ritual. When R.J. was diagnosed in 2000, I was grateful that I was playing for the Oakland Raiders, because I could come home more often than I had been able to in the past. I told myself that I was racing home because I wanted to be helpful to my family. But the truth was that I wasn't much help. My wife, Holly, and I couldn't agree on much about R.J. back then. I wanted to be there for my family, but I spent my precious evenings in my favorite chair at the Grand Havana instead of with them. Later, flushed with the success of a good season with the Raiders, the cigars and Scotch would be flowing. I convinced myself that the Monty II and Macallan was daddy time. Think of that. Daddy time spent far away from the kids. I would usually go to the lounge by myself, but other times I'd meet friends there. We never talked about how my boy was struggling. Maybe this was because I wanted to escape the feelings that were killing me inside. Maybe I believed my friends couldn't relate. Maybe I didn't know how to talk about it. Mostly, I was just scared. Holly would often call me while I was at the club. When I saw her number on my phone, I would ignore it or reply with a curt text message. Sometimes I waited until I returned home to deal with her. By the time I got there, she'd be furious. Eventually, we were barely communicating. After a while, she stopped complaining when I left. The ironic thing was that when I escaped to the cigar lounge or sat alone in the backyard to drink, all I would daydream about was our happy past vacations and other blissful times with my family. I had to get away from them in order to imagine a happy life. Many men listening to this may recognize themselves in my actions. If you're listening to this audiobook, you've probably reached this same moment, a time when you feel like you don't know how to be the dad your family needs. Maybe you spend time with a rare Scotch and a cigar, or you're off in the garage with a cigarette and a beer, or you stay later and later at work because it just seems easier than facing the family. You know how to make money to support the family, and you know you love your kids. But suddenly, that's not enough. Men want to battle